To today's online lecture in the module series of add value on rangeland management or sustainable rangeland management. We already heard some lectures to clarify what is rangeland, what are the specifics, and today we can welcome Dr. Muti, and I'm not really sure, are you holding it together with somebody? But you are already visible with your presentation, and it's all about rangeland resource monitoring. So I think most of you who are participating, you are familiar with our procedures. We have the possibilities to use the chat for questions. If you want to speak up, but you cannot open your phone, your microphone from yourself, then please indicate it via raising the hand. And we also have some of the doctoral students being facilitating the question and answers. I think everything is really nicely set up, and we can look forward to the input and all the questions and discussion. So I would hand over to Dr. Muti, and if you still have some information about the technique or otherwise, please also add what you have.
Thank you, Angelica. I think you have already alluded to it that there will be a question and answer, and we have other colleagues like Haron and Muindi. I've given you the rights to be co-host, so you'll be able to help on people who want to ask questions. When they raise their hands, you can allow them to talk, and also, or promote them to be panelists. So you have that authority. And probably those ones who are probably not able to speak, they can put their questions in the Q&A section, and the part of the panelists here will be able to pick those questions and they can be answered. For the chat, you can use it for chatting amongst the participants, but for specific questions and answers, it will be easier for the facilitator to see your questions if you put them there. So thank you very much, and over to you, Dr. Muti.
Yeah, thank you very much, Angelica and Requaro, for that introduction. I should have gone straight conventional method, but first, I'd wish we look at the nutritional value, because I think there is a sequence to improve the understanding. So I would kindly, if you don't mind, you allow me, we first look at the nutritional values of most forages. In this presentation, I think I'm alone. Professor Ageru, I think, got committed elsewhere. So I'll try my best. So let me try. I know there can be some power interruption, but I don't expect it. So let me start off. So we look at, that is the nutritional values. My name is Simon Muti from Pwani University. And if we first look at the nutritional value of forages, it refers to the nutrients available in most of the natural grasses and pastures, in shrubs and herbs, among others that are normally eaten either by cattle, goats, sheep, among others. Now, the nutritional value will depend on the particular species, breed of the animals, and so it will apply accordingly. Now, I'll first look at what are the various conditions, rangeland vegetation conditions. We normally classify them into 3 or 4. We have the excellent condition, and I have tried my best. I've tried my best to show what is excellent based on what is available at this. Actually, these ones I was taking the photos yesterday. So we look at if it is mainly the cows or the cattle, the nutritional forages, we have the grasses. When the grasses are green and perhaps lush, we consider them to be excellent. And that is just before they produce the seeds, whereby they are considered to be high in protein, among other qualities. So the excellent conditions, the grasses are green, lush, and may have more nutrients in terms of true protein, among others. Then the second class is a good condition. The good condition, if you compare with the earlier one, you find that in the good condition, well, they have a bit aged, they have seeded, but they are at least a bit better. And sometimes, if you look at most of the people who do grazing, they consider the just about seeded to the extra stage to be more nutritious. I don't know, to be more nutritious in quotes, because the animals feed well and they really grow fat. Compare that with the lush grass, whereby if it is too young, the animals will start scoring, among other things. But at this good condition, the animal is able to get the required dry matter. That's about 30 kilos per animal also. And therefore, the person feeding them will not have a big challenge in getting enough food for the animal. So they are fairly green, mature, and perhaps seeding. Then the third category, sorry.
We were just wondering whether you want to have the presentation mode. Ah, yeah. Now
yeah. Sorry,
okay.
I forgot, but I'm there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Angelica. Yeah, so we have the good conditions. I've just described it. Then we have the third category, that is the fair condition. In this case, if it is the grasses, they are aged, lignified, and sometimes fibrous. And we have the invasive species creeping in. I don't know whether from the photo is possible to check, but if you check within the photo, you find some other vegetation yellowish creeping in. These are invasive species taking up. So, okay, later on, perhaps I'll show the transition from the excellent, good, and fair, and how those vegetation composition changes until we have the invasive species taking over. So the fair conditions, we tend to have the vegetation tends to be a bit aged. It has already seeded. It is lignified fibrous, and we have more of invasive species increasing. Then we have the final category, is the poor condition. And in this particular category, you can see the invasive species normally dominate, and sometimes the ground is bare. So if you check the first photo, I forgot to label it, but I hope you can see. You can see much of the material left. The animals ate all the lush and palatable, and what is left there is the unpalatable species of invasive species, and they tend to take over and colonize the whole place. At the extreme bit of it, you find that the grass, or rather the ground, remains bare because most of the vegetation has been eaten up by the animals. So we consider this vegetation at least poor in quality, because the animals may not obtain enough of the nutrients which they would like to use. Now, what are these? What is the nutritional value of range forages? One, the quality of forage normally affects, one, the animal health. That is, if the animal is being fed well, it will be much healthy with high levels of resistance to diseases, and they will normally appear well. Their skin smooth and appealing. They also have faster growth rate, where the animals are getting enough of the feed, they will grow very fast, and they will reach the reproduction age at good times. If it is a heifer, it will reach reproductive age within the shortest time possible, and perhaps it will conceive because it is getting all the nutrients needed for that function. Also, if they are making animals, they will produce more milk and meat. I don't know, from the photos are presented there, this is perhaps what we may consider perhaps a good health of our animals. Okay, I know when we go to Europe or let's say German, the breed and the animals are fairly well taken care of and all that. But at least you can tell a healthy one and an unhealthy one. Depending on the particular breed, we can have sheep also, and they will take advantage of the different species composition, whether grass or the leafy vegetation. Now, what are the main nutritional components of range forages? One, these range forages supply the necessary energy or carbohydrates that provides energy to the body or for the animals to do the various activities. And within these, we have the grasses, the leafy plants, and all that. Then the second category of nutrient is the proteins. These are needed for growth and muscle building and reproduction and milk production. If you go to most of the rangelands, you find an assorted species. We have legumes, other non-legume plants, and all that. So these different diversified vegetation provide a good mix for the healthy growth of the animals, be they cattle or sheep or goats. Minerals. These are mainly important for building the strong bones, the teeth, the blunt and plank functions. Most of the minerals, if they are not obtained from the plants, most of them are obtained from during the licking, or we have salt licks where the animals are taken and they normally go and lick from the soil. There are various, depending on the landscape, there are various areas where the concentration of the salts are high, and the herders give them ample time to go and supplement from that. But there are also those salt blocks which provide a balanced minerals so that the animals can grow healthy. We also have vitamins, and these support the immune system, the vision, and the skin, among others. And these vitamins are normally obtained from the leafy plants. The cows obtain them from the grasses because most of them are grazers. The goats and sheep, or rather, the goats are browsers, so they'll get the different vegetation and supply a range of vitamins depending on the mix of the vegetation. Then we also have fibers, or simply roughage, and this aids in digestion, especially in ruminants like cows and goats. Much of this is obtained from mature grasses and other mature vegetation, whereby the roughage becomes very important. There is also water, which maintains the body temperatures, among other body functions and fluids. And normally, fresh forage, and especially large large vegetation, provides a lot of water. And that's why we find if you graze during the early part of the rainy season, the grass is lush and the animals end up taking more of water than the dry matter. What factors affect nutritional value of forages? There are many, but I'll just mention a few. The plant species. Plant species have different compositions of proteins, vitamins, and others. So depending on the particular breed of the animal, for example, we have goats prefer to browse. So most of the shrubs and other herbs and thickets, they'll provide an assorted. They'll provide assorted the availability of those nutrients, the proteins, and many others. Also, growth or stage of growth and age of the vegetation affects for the lush and fairly non-vegetation which has not reached flowering, we find there is a concentration of the nutrients increases a peak at seeding stage, that is production of flowers. So that is the time. Beyond that, beyond seeding or beyond flowering, the quality of the forage decreases. So we are saying the stage of growth or the age of the whatever dictates the nutritional composition of those whatever. Then there is also the season. Seasonality plays a big part in Africa in terms of the quality of forages. During the wet season, we normally tend to have lush and green and more nutritious vegetation. But during the dry season, much of the vegetation has aged and got lignified. So the forages tend to be of low quality during the dry season. The soil fertility is also important because it affects the type of vegetation and how it grows. So in rich soils, the plants tend to be more nutritious and they grow healthily and provide animals with what they require. There is also the grazing pressure. If the animals are overstocked, they'll eat all the lush and nutritional grasses or vegetation, and they will leave. They will leave the invasive species which are not palatable. So if you continue grazing, they will eat all whatever is available and only leave the invasive species which take over. And in that case, overgrazing will lead to poor shape of the animals and among others. Now, I have given some bit of examples of nutritional values of the various forages in terms of the particular component and the age of the grass, whether young or mature. And last, I've given how much legumes give us. So you find that the crude proteins in the young grasses or vegetation ranges between 10 to 18%. However, as the plant matures, you find that the crude protein decreases and as a result of lignification and tanning, deposition of tannins, and therefore mature grasses have low levels of crude protein. However, if it's leguminous plants, they still have high levels. For example, we have Lucina, Gliricidia, among others. They tend to have high levels of protein from 15 to 25. We have digestible energy. The young grasses, up to before flowering, they tend to have a lot of digestible energy because most of the plant parts are easily digestible and they provide a lot of energy. However, as they mature, due to lignification and deposition of tannins, mature grasses tend to have less energy. However, for legumes, they still tend to provide more digestible energy because they have high levels of protein and starch, if you allow me to use that, and other cellular materials, which are easily digestible. Then fiber, young grasses or young vegetation tend to have less of fiber, and that's why they are more digestible and provide more energy. However, as they mature, the amount of fiber increases due to lignification, among other processes. Legumes tend to have fairly less fiber because they tend to have more of protein. So some of these nutrients work against other. So if you have more proteins, perhaps the fiber will be low and vice versa. So why is nutritional value so important in rangelands? Highly nutritive forages, they tend to lead to healthy livestock. with better growth and therefore short time to reach marketing or market stage, or what we call marketing age. It also tends to lead to good reproduction and good immunity to the animals, and they look fairly healthy. I hope my clip there shows healthy ones, even though they are red. I should have selected black ones, but it's okay. Now, there is high milk content when the nutrition is good. There is high milk production and also high meat yield when the nutrition is proper. We also tend to have reduced need for expensive supplements because the animals are able to obtain important vitamins and all the others from the high value forages or vegetation. Then we tend to have good economic returns, especially for the pastoralists, because the animals normally tend to grow very fast compared to if they are poorly fed. I would like now I move to the second bit. That is what was intended to be the lecture of the day. So I first have the introductory bit. What are the various conventional methods of measuring rangeland productivity? So I'll first listed, then I'll go later and discuss it accordingly. So among the methods, we have line transect, describe what that is, and it normally covers the ground and looks at the composition of the various grass or plant species. We have the quadrant method, which normally is rectangular, and it mainly looks at plant density, biomass, and what species may be involved in 1 meter square. Then we have the visual estimation, which is normally quick overview of the condition of the range. So you can easily say this range condition is excellent, is good, or is fair or bad. Then we also have the clipping method, whereby we cut it is destructive. We cut the grass or the vegetation, and then we weigh. And from the given area we have cut, we can give estimation of the amount of yield, either fresh or dry. Then we have permanence plots. These are for comparing the growth under either the different soil under different conditions. Then the other method is through use of looking at animal performance, whether they are good or bad. So when the range conditions are good, the animal performance will be seen as good. And this can be observed by when we weigh their animals using the band. Among others, indirect methods is used looking at the weather conditions, where for how long it has been raining and for how long we have had dry season. Then we also look at the species composition and therefore biodiversity of the rangeland. So I would like to move to the second bit of the presentation, if you allow me, unless somebody needs a break of rangeland assessment. But so that I don't appear monotonous, at this level, can I accommodate any questions or I continue? I hope I'm not alone. Hello, members.
You're not alone. I'm sure somebody will check the question and answers. So let us hear if there are some.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, I would like we look at the conventional methods of rangeland assessment and monitoring. And first, I've decided to give the definition of rangeland assessment. And we are saying is the process of 1, measuring, and 2, describing condition and productivity of rangelands. Now, I've given some small clips there, which perhaps predict what I would like to say. For example, we can measure the amount of plant cover per given area. So if you look at the first peak, the second and the third, We can measure either in a given area, 1 meter or 5 meters squared. We can measure the amount of biomass produced at each level. That is one. Also, if we are looking at the quality of the forage, we can look in terms of the greenness of the material based on over season. And then we can as well describe whether the material is in excellent condition, whether the material is in good condition, whether it is fair condition, and last, whether it is in poor condition. And now the productivity.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
Sorry, is it? Sorry, it could be. Maybe it is from my side. I can't see the slides moving. Is it okay for everyone?
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sorry, I forgot to. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. So I was trying to describe. The conditions of these rangelands, and we can first look at the quality of the vegetation in terms of greenness, lushness, and how lignified, and finally colonized as pasture. So we can be able to measure, describe the condition and productivity of those rangelands. Now, monitoring. Monitoring refers to the repeated observation over time of the particular rangelands to detect whether there are any salient changes. If you allow me to use just the same chart there, and we look at performance of that pasture over time, at initial stages during the rainy season, you can see the grasses may be lush, green, either deep green and lush and doing well. But over time, as the rainfall tends to disappear, you can see the color changes, perhaps to dull green, indicating, color changes and also the maturity of the grass, of the forage. So the forage has moved to the next stage of maturity. And then the third bit, you can see, as time goes, the grasses become a bit lignified and a bit tough. And last but not least, especially if they are overgrazed, you find we remain with the invasive species, which are unpalatable and fibrous. So
Simon?
you can see we can monitor the stages of growth of that particular, of any particular pastures based on what I've given there.
Simon, at the moment, we see not a presentation mode and your slide on vegetation condition, which is the third slide. So we are not sure whether you moved forward on another screen, but we don't see the presentation mode.
Sorry, it's not in presentation mode?
No.
Oh, okay. Let me perhaps, I think let me switch off. I'm sorry, let me end the show and perhaps, I think it got stuck somewhere.
I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who was suffering from this side.
You see, when I'm seeing everything right here, I cannot tell whether what you are seeing, but it's good you are helping me also. Is it visible now in presentation mode?
It did not change for me so far. I don't know whether
something is wrong then, because when I change here, it's visible. Oh,
and share and reshare.
Sorry, I unshare.
Share and reshare. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let me. Sorry for that. And share. Sorry, just 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Well, that's fine. And in the meantime, we can welcome more participants. We got a large group now, and that's fine that so many people are participating. Now you did the unsharing, that's good. And maybe with the new sharing,
so
it will
share
work.
again, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So minute, please. to Is it
not
visible?
yet, but maybe
Not yet.
no,
Is it visible?
but it
Not yet?
maybe takes a moment.
Share. Where are we? Mhm. 1 minute, please. Okay. I seem to have lost the sharing. Thank you. Thank you. I've got it.
Something is happening.
Yeah.
Now it's a Word document which you are sharing.
Yeah, 1 minute. Is it visible?
It's visible, yes, and now it's in the not in the presentation.
Is it okay now?
Now it's in the
Is it okay?
presentation mode. Yes.
It is okay.
Yes, it's the first
It's okay
slide.
now?
It's okay. It's the first slide at the moment with your presentation, and now it's
The second one is visible.
Yeah, conventional
Perfect.
message.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. These machines were not. So I think I started with the definition, defining what is rangeland assessment, and we say the process of describing or measuring and then describing the condition and the productivity of rangelands. And I think I gave an outline in terms of if we look at the condition when the grasses are young, they are lush and green. As they age, they turn color to pale green. Then they become a little bit more dignified. Now, how do we describe the condition of rangelands? Now, how do we describe the condition of rangeland vegetation? Now, we describe the condition of rangelands by assessing their health in terms of how lush or green they are, that they can be palatable to our animals, how productive they are in terms of whether they are providing the necessary nutrients, and also the rangeland by itself, its ability to support plant life, the animals, and the various ecosystem functions. Now, from my slides, sorry, I'm sorry, I wanted to, whatever, but I seem to have, sorry, I wanted to move backwards. Yeah, from my slides, if you look at the first one, the first slide on top, it shows if you are looking at the goats or your camels, the vegetation there would look more suitable for the goats and the camels because they are mainly browsers. And we have young and midway old leaves and all that, and they become more nutritious. If you are looking at the cattle, that is the second slide, you realize if the rangeland has much of the grass, then that would feed the cattle or would be more better for feeding cattle, depending on the stage of growth of the grass. Now, if the condition of the rangeland is such that is not well catered for, then the last slide shows that a lot of erosion has been there, and so the soil fertility and stability has been affected. So in other words, we are saying the condition of rangelands normally refers to the current state of the land in terms of vegetation cover, either shrubs or thickets or grasses, and soil stability, in terms of whether it can support growth or it has been over-eroded, and also in terms of ecological balance compared to what is considered natural or ideal condition. So we can talk of the range condition. Now, how do we assess rangeland condition? We have key indicators for describing rangeland condition. One of the indicators, it will appear like a repetition of the previous one, but I hope it makes sense. So one of the indicators is vegetation cover. How well is the rangeland covered by the various vegetation? How much of that ground is bare and how much is covered by plants? So if you look at the first slide, you can see that the land is fully covered by either shrubs, trees, and also grasses. So that rangeland is well covered, and therefore the soils are protected from erosion and many others. And it also provides an assorted vegetation type for the different animals. The cattle can take the grass, the camels or the goats can take the taller vegetation. We also look at the plant composition, the types of plants present, which distinguish between the desirable plants and weeds. In most cases, for people keeping sheep and cattle, definitely they prefer grazing, and therefore slide 2 would fit them because they will just mow the grass and get what I need. So the plant composition is very important because at least the animals will be able to get what they require. Or they even be able to choose, because like goats are very choosy, so they will be able to choose from whatever is available. They choose what is most nutritious to them. I think the soil conditions we have talked about, the soil condition, if you look at the last slide, the last photo there, you can see the land has been grazed until now. The ground becomes bare with just the invasive species remaining. And then there is the forage productivity, how much of the grass is usable and how much is available for grazing. So we also look at the forage productivity. And the other important consideration is how does the soil or the combination of the vegetation and the soil allow water infiltration or ground recharging? So how well does the soil absorb water and how well does it retain water? If it is well covered, the grasses would impede runoff. And so it will give ample time for rainy water to infiltrate into the deeper layers and be stored for future use. However, if the ground is bare, the water will start running off and therefore would have erosion leading to gullies. Then there is the presence of invasive species, like the last slide there. The invasive species are an indicator of the condition of that rangeland in terms of soil fertility, because most of the highly palatable vegetation has been eaten away, and what cannot grow normally is what cannot be eaten is normally what remains. That is the invasive species, and they tend to outcrowd all other vegetation, and sometimes they can lead to a succession, or they can change the succession of the vegetation there, and they dominate the land. Now, so how do we measure or even monitor vegetation changes? So one of the methods I said, we have the line transect, where we have a straight line where we can do either draw with a rope or estimate just by eyes from one point up to the other. I've tried to illustrate the use of cutting a diagonal line so that we are able to transect from one corner of the rangeland to the other. Now, if you look at my drawing there, it gives the various sampling points. So from where we start in one I've given the two diagonals. Either you can start with one of the diagonal or the other. And at each point, the blue or the yellow ones, we do sampling for either species composition, ground cover, and how much of the soil is bare. That will tend to give you the exact condition of that rangeland. If it is fully covered by the various vegetation, then we do not expect any bare ground. If there is a certain species which is dominating from the data from where we sample, from the data where we do each and every sampling, we'll be able to know a certain vegetation is dominating. Now, I think the second one gives the measurements. So the first one I'd given for the herbs, which are either for goats, rearing, and many others. But in this second one, I've given one for where we have mainly grazers, that is the animals, and the cattle normally require grasses, and so we look at the rangeland where the rangeland which is suitable for grazing your cattle, and so we can do the transect work on this and determine how much of the grass species suitable for rearing your animals is there, and so on. So we are saying we can use the diagonals, and along the line we measure. We can decide either to take 20 meters, 30 meters, or even 10 for sampling the species composition, the ground cover, among others. So using this, by the way, this work was better suited for practical work. It would really have worked, but I've tried my best in absence of a practical to see whether we are able to follow. So along either of the diagonal lines, we are able to walk either 20 meters, 10 meters, whatever, and at each of those blue points or yellow points, we do the sampling in terms of the type of grasses, the dominant grasses, the soil types, and many others, so that we are able to give a condition of those rangelands. Now, the second method is use of quadrants, where we use a square frame. And this one is normally tossed, if you allow me to use that. In a given rangeland area, it is normally tossed randomly. The way it falls, we take measurements of the vegetation which is there, the soil which is there, among others of interest. So I've given a blue quadrant there, measuring 1 by 1 meter. And within that, we look at what are the various grass species there, what are other vegetation species there, what are the different soils found there, among many other. So, and I think I've seen there, we record the type of vegetation, the plant density, the cover percentage, and then the biomass. The biomass, we normally do the destructive one, whereby we cut and weigh, and then decide whether how much it can extend for either the whole area or for 1 hectare. Now, we have the third method, the visual estimation. This one is a bit subjective, and normally observers use their experience and judgment to gauge whether the rangeland vegetation condition is good, fair, or poor. I've tried to give those photos there. I don't know, okay, it's presentation time, but if it was in a class, I would have asked my members to tell me whether the first photo there, the top one, whether that grass condition is good, fair, or poor. And then the one at the bottom, whether it is good, bad, or poor. And then the last one to the left, depending on the color, whether, so it is more visual, and sometimes we say it can be subjective. So we are saying, besides looking at that range conditions and classifying it either good, fair, or poor. We also look at vegetation cover, that is density. How many plants per unit area or per square centimeter per 10 meters squared are growing on that ground, whether it is moderate, sparse, or dense. So we are able to look at that. And then we are also able to say whether erosion has taken place or whether there is high levels of erosion and so on. Unfortunately, I was taking these photos from a flat ground, and most of our soils here are sandy. So I was not able to capture a situation of erosion, but in the subsequent photos, we'll see that. So the subjective method, the visual estimation methods is normally quick, but is quite subjective, just as I've shown in these pictures. Somebody I know in Rift Valley of Kenya, where it is ever rainy, he may say, actually, this grass is so poor. Somebody in Ukambani, if we look at the left photo, he may say, this grass looks very palatable to our animals, especially if it is during the dry season. So it is highly subjective. Now, the other method is the one whereby we do clipping and weighing. So this is a destructive method. So on the photo to the right, this photo, the grass is about 2 feet tall. And if we want to measure the amount of grass produced per 1 meter squared, so we would use a sickle and cut, a sickle or a panga, and cut the grass from 1 centimeter from the base, and we weigh how much of dry matter that one is. Also from that cut one, we'll be able to look at what are the species composition of the different grasses within that area. So we clip, we dry the grass, and then we weigh, and then we get the amount of biomass obtained from that unit area. This clipped material biomass gives an accurate information on the forage yield and also the carrying capacity of that rangeland. So if that rangeland is uniformly covered by the grass or vegetation, we can be able to calculate the carrying capacity and also the stocking rate of that rangeland. Now, we also have permanent plots for purposes of observing the rangeland conditions. And in these ones, they are normally set or planted in a given area, so that within these specific areas, they are marked and we observe regularly over time. I didn't have a clip for this, but perhaps I had. So in this one, we can get the situation at the start of the rainy season, let's say in May, in March, April, May. So at the start of the season, we'll get the species composition of that given area. Then we wait until the rainy season ends, and around July to August, we come and check the species composition, the ground cover, and so on. And then in December, we come and repeat the same. So within these permanent plots, we are able to gauge by how much is the vegetation condition changing with time and what are measures we can take to improve. This use of permanent plots helps us to track changes in vegetation and also in land condition, and whether there is need to institute any ameliorative effects, for example, soil amendments and all that. Then the other method is use of animal performance. That is, we monitor the performance of the animals over time. So it involves tracking and watching the health, the weight, and the milk yield of the animals. For example, we may say during the rainy season, we look at the condition of the animals, we get their weight using the bandwidth, and over time, as it gets dry, we also keep on checking. So from the weight of the animals during the wet season, at the onset of the dry season, and at December or March when it is driest, we are able to see whether the weight of the animals has been increasing or decreasing, and that can give us a rough estimate of the condition of the rangeland forages and all that. So by using that, we are able to see whether the animals are performing poorly if the graph we have drawn is showing a decline in the weight of the animals or even in the skin tone of the animal. So here we mainly rely on forage quality of the rangeland to assess the condition of that rangeland. So it is more or less of an indirect method that we look at the condition or performance of the animals by monitoring their weight and other attributes. Then there is an indirect method also, monitoring the rainfall and weather records. Normally, the amount of rainfall received is a good indicator of the amount of vegetation or rangeland conditions. Where the rainfall amount and the distribution of a given year or of a given period is good, we expect the condition of the rangeland vegetation to improve with the time up to the end of that cycle. So by checking on rainfall, the amount received, the distribution over time, and also the dry periods, we are able to give, or we are able to get an indicator of the performance of those rangelands. So keeping weather data helps understand the changes that occur within a given rangeland and what time we should either move the animals to another place, or if somebody is doing paddocking, we should be able to move the animals to a fresh paddock so that we don't have overgrazing. The other important observations is plant growth. We can monitor plant growth, either the vegetation, especially shrubs and all that. Shrubs are good indicators of range condition. There are those shrubs which drop their leaves when the weather becomes too harsh or becomes too dry. So by monitoring plant growth, we are able to get to know the condition of the rangeland. Then there is also the issue of the water availability, particularly for the animals also, especially as we move towards the dry season. Availability of water is very important because we are able to know whether that particular rangeland is able to support plant growth and also animals during the reproductive period. And also we can also monitor the grazing capacity of a rangeland based on how much biomass can be obtained. And that is not only biomass, but also the quality and types of the vegetation which can be obtained in a given rangeland. Now, there is also the species composition analysis, and in this one, we normally count the number and type of plant species present in a given rangeland. Normally, healthy rangelands have more desirable species that are palatable and nutritious, and so their grazing should be controlled so that they can be sustained into the future. Overgrazing most of the palatable species can lead to species composition, whereby we have palatable species taking over or suppressing the palatable species. Noting of the amount of invasive species or poisonous species is a good indicator of the rangeland. In situations where we find we have a lot of invasive species or poisonous species, we should get to know that that rangeland is losing condition. And so we should find ways of amending it, or rather amending the soils, or even uprooting or controlling the invasive species so that other palatable grass species can be able to thrive well. Now, summary. I know this summary I gave before I started, and here it has come back. So in summary, we are saying we have line classic method, a quadrant method, visual estimation, clipping and weighing, use of permanent plots. We look at animal performance, and weather records, and species composition. And with that, I don't know whether I've taken too short or too long, but I calculated so that we have a time for questions and perhaps engaging with each other. Thank you very much for your listening. I seem to have left about it is exactly 11. I seem to have finished quite early, but I think we can make better use of the time by engaging with each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So maybe I can ask Harun and Consolata to open their mics and facilitate some questions, or, well, first maybe you try your technique, whether we can see and hear you. There you are. Wonderful.
Okay. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect.
Aaron.
Yeah.
You can unshare.
Sorry, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Just 1 minute and share. 1 minute. Sharing and unsharing. This is the most where we are. 1 minute. Sorry. Are we there or have complicated the situation? 1 minute. Have I unshared or have shared? I'm not sure which is which.
So there is a green button, maybe.
Yes. I've struck the green button. Sharing options, share sound, share. So what do I do with the
Or maybe
share
it's
here?
if you shared already, it's some other button. But
let me try again to get out. I'm sorry for taking your time.
it's somehow called stop sharing.
Oh, stop sharing. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for stop sharing. Sorry. Come on. Thank you. I've seen it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank
again, Harun, Consolata, before I'm taking too much of your ideas, please come back again. In the meantime, there are a lot of credits and thank yous to you, Simon, for the good presentation and the overview. And again, I ask Harun and Consolata, we can now use the time to discuss a little bit what question came up from the presentation, or maybe further comments and ideas. What does this mean for rangeland science and research? So actually, yeah, here you are. Okay, I give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angelica, and thank you so much, Simon, for the presentation. This very nice presentation, and it also aligns with my study. I'm a PhD student from the University of Nairobi. My name is Harun Akala, and I'm pursuing PhD in range management. So in my topic or my study, I'm trying to find the convergent point and divergent point between the conventional approaches and also the local methods in which the pastoralists use to monitor their rangeland. So you find that at some point from just giving information from my work, you realize that some of ways in which these pastoralists monitor their range condition, or they monitor their resources, their vegetation, at some point this is not available in the conventional protocols of monitoring, the conventional protocols on how they monitoring of these conditions. So there's that point where we find there's disparity, and there's a point where we find there is convergency. So it's very interesting when you look at the presentation from Simon. I don't know if it's Dr. Simon, but you'll forgive me. You see that there's different approaches, and you see that the way personally look at for instance, vegetation, might not be the way we understand it. And there's a point where the speaker talked about the different colors, and you realize that at some point, for instance, pastoralists, when they're looking at color is very important. It's a very important aspect when they are looking at pasture. For instance, when it's green, they associate it with high water content. But now this changes with seasonality, and it's always green at the beginning of the rain season. But now when you're transitioning through to the dry season, there are different phases, the phenological stages in which this pasture, give an example of grass, changes from green to a different color to a different color. But all these colors have pastoralists, they monitor it, and they are very important in decision making. For just giving you an example, in the Rendile pastoralists in Marsabit, when they look at grass, when it's green, they say it has high water content. And that means that they when they take their livestock to graze on this grass, they will not be able to water. That means they will not be taking their livestock back to water more often, because that grass has a lot of water. So it means that the frequency of watering has reduced. But now when this grass changes the color from green to another color, so for example, yellow, which they call El Posan. So El Posan, for them, they associate it as mature. So when it reaches this El Posan, it means it's mature. And that's the point where the speaker talks about nutritional quality. And here they associate it with high biomass. And now, when this dries, now this is the point where rain has stopped. It has stopped raining. Now we're transitioning to the dry season. So when you transition to the dry season, the same grass will change the color from yellow to another color, either white, that means it has low water content. But it depends, because if it's a perennial grass, it means that there's annual, there's perennial. So the annual grass, they always appear when they do in the rain season, then they disappear. But perennial, they are available throughout the season. So now this perennial grass will change to another color, which is white. When it's white, it means that the roots are still healthy. The roots are still alive. But now the water content, it has no low water content. But once, what these pastoralists, they do, that they will water their livestock first, or they will be watering their livestock frequently while they graze on this type of grass. But when this condition, because there's what we call drought, the definition where at a point when drought starts, it's not even easy to identify the point at which drought starts, because drought is an extension of the dry season. So when this extension of the dry season continues, find that this grass, which is white, changes color to black. And black, for them, the associate is that it's dead. That means it has no water content. It's dead. Even the roots are dead. So at this point, there's no pasture which is available. So it's only those remains, litter which is available. So what are the approaches? What are the different ways in which they try to utilize some of these pasture at the point, for example, when it has changed the color to black? You find that they try to mix it, because we have these trees that are evergreen and they have fruits. So they take those fruits and mix it and give it to their livestock. So in terms of monitoring, you find that where the conventional methods are very effective in terms of monitoring, we can adopt it in monitoring the rangeland, but you find that the pastoralists still have their local way of monitoring these resources. So thank you so much, and I am happy to, in case there's anyone who has a question, you can just post it on the chat so that the speaker can also be able to respond to it. And then also I see we have other panelists in the room. They can also be able to address and respond to it. So if I go to question and answer, there's from Kalam, there is an issue on range condition and trend. It's still applicable. How can it be integrated? I think this question here, perhaps
just a moment. Simon had to
sorry.
he was out of the meeting and had to come back. So before you read the question of the chat, maybe we check whether Simon still can hear us and whether he can react to your first questions.
Sorry, I have a power blackout, but I'm using the phone.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear me?
Yes, actually better than before.
Okay, I'm using the phone. We have had power blackout. So the convergence between the tradition, let me call the traditional pastoralists and the science bit of it. Actually, farmers have heavily relied on their historical past knowledge, and mostly they use the visual. They use the visual estimation of the condition of the rangeland, and based on their past experience, they are able to tell the condition of that range and how it changes. Now, one good example, I think, is, if you allow me, I hope I'm okay, is the Maasais. At what point do they decide to change the cycle of the pastures? So towards the end of the season, when the grass had become so fibrous, what Akala was talking of black, they normally burn that grass. But before burning, they normally have cycles of either grazing in the valley bottoms and at the upper hills. So when the grass in the upper hills has been exhausted and much of it has turned out to be black, what Akala is calling black or taffy, they burn that grass and they move to the lower areas where the grass is lush. Now, one of the things we must note is that most of the communities are very disciplined. They know what time to move to the valley bottoms where the grass is lush and what time to move to the highlands or upper hills. During the wet season, normally they would not wish to touch the valley bottoms because the water there is the water levels or the soil moisture content is high and soggy, so they prefer moving to the higher levels. Now they move to by the time they are moving to the higher levels, the grass there is fairly mature and can support the livestock. At the valley bottoms, as the dry season catches up, the quality of the grass also changes based on the color changes. And so they are able to decide when to move up and down based on the color changes of the grass and also the texture, combined with the historical experiences they have. So the color of the particular vegetation is very important. Now, for example, within coast, we have had the Somalis moving with their cattle and camels all the way from northeastern Mandera, and they have come down the coast. And as they come, they are following availability of the pastures and watering points. So they normally use the visual observations so that they can know what they are able to know it is now time to move, and they move following how the vegetation changes and depending on availability of water. So traditionally, the issue of the visual methods, the historical and the cyclic nature of our climate help them decide what time to move and what time to let the pastures grow and also seed. So I think the use of these colors is very important, just as Mr. Akala has said. I hope I didn't lose you when I got the blackout, but I hope we are together.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much, Simon, for that. That's very informative.
Yes.
There's a question from Kalam.
Yes.
There's an issue. The question raised that there's an issue on rangeland condition and trend. Is it still applicable? How can it be integrated? I don't know.
Yeah, the rangeland
Kalam,
conditions. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to ask if Kalam if we can give her the mic so that she can, he or I don't know if it's she or he, raise the question, because I think there is the question seems like there's something missing. Kalama is there, can allow you to raise the question. Please unmute.
Hello,
Yeah, Mr. Kalam, please.
am I clear?
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
you are
clear.
clear.
Thank you, Dr. Muti, for the presentation. It's very nice. But some of us who are now in the digital age and we're analog, we used to learn about range condition and trend, where the trend can be either downwards or upwards depending on the use of the rangeland. Now, I was wondering if it is still being applied or applicable even now, and then how can it be integrated now in the work that we have just presented?
Thank you, Mr. Kalama Kafahamu. Actually, that's a nice question, because sometimes people would like to know what trend is this particular rangeland or vegetation taking. Now, trend normally it is something which happens over time. And over time, is it getting any better or worse? And much of this also, we infuse in now what we are saying climate change. With climate change, we tend to realize, depending on which specific area you are in, we realize the amount of rainfall is decreasing with the time or over time. And therefore, performance of a given rangeland and the condition of those rangeland plants or species will change depending on time and also on the rainfall being received. So we have those situations whereby if the place has been receiving declining rainfall over time, then the trend of that rainfall, the trend of that rangeland will be declining over time. And therefore, the performance of the animals may be affected, and even the carrying capacity or stocking rate. And therefore, to forestall this, in most cases, we move in, and during the times of plenty, we conserve forage or feed, so that it can be able to levelize the periods of low productivity and the periods when we have high productivity. So it is true, trend is very important. It has an important aspect in terms of the productivity over time of that particular rangeland. I'm not sure whether I've answered your question. Kalama, Kafahamu. Hello, I hope I'm not alone.
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Asante sana, Daktari, for that clarification.
And we are likely to get more complicated as the issues of climate change persist. Even though Trump said there is nothing like climate change, but it is real and it is affecting availability of water in most of the rural areas, and it is also leading to conflicts between the farmers in competition for the limited resources of pasture and water. And I think that is now what is eating us down here in the coast. There's a big competition whereby people from outside, they are bringing in the animals in search of pastures and water. And so with time, I think things are going either to escalate, not for the better, but perhaps for the worst with climate change. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Simon. So I'll give the mic to Sami Koech. Sami, please proceed and ask your question. Sammy, unfortunately, we cannot hear you, though you have unmuted. Okay, now let's move to Andrew. Andrew, please unmute. Andrew? Okay, perhaps I can just read the question for Sami Koech. The question is there any GIS platform for rangeland monitoring and assessment?
Oh, nice. I think that is a topic for, I don't know what topic, but it is there. The use of remote sensing and GIS. So let me not preempt the presenter, the coming presenter. If he can be patient, I think he will be there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then there's another question from Andrew Sekitoleko. One of the methods for monitoring rangeland include animal performance. And he's asking, kindly elaborate more on how the health of an animal is assessed.
Oh, thank you. Nice. We have various parameters for assessing the animal performance. One, we have growth, and growth we normally monitor by taking its or recording its weight. The second one is the condition of the animal, under the condition, there are various factors we can be checking on. The skin color tone, whether it is appealing or it is deteriorating. We also have many others, that is under reproduction, whether it is able to reproduce within the given time. In most cases, undernourished livestock take longer to come to heat and therefore to breed. So the time taken also, that one determines. And then I know there's the other aspect of availability of other nutritive factors such as the minerals and all that, they will also affect. So we are saying under animal performance, we can be monitoring the growth of those animals in terms of getting the weight. And we normally use the band, which is an easier way of measuring the weight of that animal. There is also the traditional way of saying this animal is growing fast or is delaying. I think what you are saying, the traditional ways of doing things, we can say either this breed of this animal is growing very slowly or very fast, depending on the nutrition. But definitely that one is subject to the issue of deworming, among other important factors. Then there is the actual visual observation of the animal. Does it look appealing? The skin color tells a lot. Very important. The amount of immunity. How often is the animal predisposed either to diseases or pests? That give an indication of whether that animal or that stock or that herd is doing well or not performing well. I've talked of the rate at which the animal is able to conceive, that is coming to heat. In most cases, if the animal is being fed well and under good management, it should come to heat at the right time, and you should be able to get the number of calves per year within the record time. But sometimes, in absence of either proper nutrition, we can get this one compromised, and farmers start complaining that the animals are not economical keeping because they are not coming to production when required. I think there are many more other important factors which we can talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Daktari, for the elaborate explanation. So there's also a question here from, I think, one of the attendee. So the question reads, how is soil erosion or bare ground percentage assessed during field monitoring?
Thank you very much. I think for soil erosion, it is not obvious to everybody that soil erosion is occurring, but we have some bit of measures where we can know soil erosion is happening. Now, one of it is ground cover. When the soil is well covered, or when the rangeland is well covered by vegetation, we do not expect much of the erosion occurring because much of the water infiltrates. In situations whereby the ground is bare and perhaps the amount of rainfall received is so much that can infiltrate, then we start getting runoff. Immediately we see runoff happening, then that's a good indicator of soil erosion. Now, with that, we can have erosion either from the wind, that is a sheet erosion, or from water. And from those, where the ground is not covered, we can have either gullies or real erosion, among others. Now, when the topsoil is eroded, it means most of the nutrients, either they are carried away to other places, and we tend to have subsoil remaining. And therefore, the growth of vegetation there becomes poor or compromised, or it takes too long for it to grow to the standards it is required. So soil erosion, major indicator is how the soil is bare, or what percentage of the soil is bare, and that can be a good indicator of erosion. Is a good indicator of the erosion is likely to take place. The other important bit is where the animals pass. For most of the herders, either they are used to following a certain path or road when taking the animals for water. And if that path is followed, all the vegetation normally disappears because of the trodding. And in the end, we tend to have valleys developing. So when first the soil becomes loose, and when it rains, all that soil is carried to lower level areas. And so we see the issue of erosion taking place. Erosion is also a product of the type of soil you have. If you look at the black cotton soils, those soils are very erodible because they do not have the important colloids for holding that soil together. You compare black cotton soils and red soils, you find that the black cotton soils are more erodible very easily. They just fall apart. While the red clay soils, they hold one another. And if you put in plant roots and many other vegetation, then erosion tends to be limited. I really don't know I should continue or I can stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simon, for answering the question. So I think we have the last question here from Sami Koech. The question read that, is there a cultural or traditional naive assessment or monitoring of the rangeland forages accepted in science?
Did I get the question? Would you please repeat? I was busy changing from telephone to mobile phone.
Yeah. So
Please
the question, okay. Yeah, I think you will have to leave from the mobile phone devices to reduce the echo.
Yeah. 1 minute. 1 minute. Number says, hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So the question reads, that is between in the traditional way of monitoring or assessing the rangeland forages. This question is not clear. Let me just try to rephrase. Is there a cultural or traditional native assessment or monitoring of rangeland forages accepted in science?
Yes, that is, I think, where science meets the traditional, and I think that for people doing research in those rangelands, in most cases, they should first listen, or they first listen to the farmers. They observe what farmers do, and merge with the knowledge or the scientific knowledge they have. And in fact, in most cases, you realize what farmers were doing traditionally, that itself has a science in it, only that they could not explain scientifically. Now, for example, in a situation where farmers keep goats, and we know goats feed on either shrubs and much of the herbs, farmers are able to tell when the shrubs are about to lose their leaves, and therefore the amount of available biomass or feeding material is declining. So from that, they are able to know that the conditions are changing, and they would rather either move elsewhere or find a better way. Because as we transit from the wet to the dry seasons, there is a lot of physiological changes in plants and also in the animals, whereby the plants either tend to lose leaves, and therefore the farmers have to find which other vegetation is able to hold their leaves so that they can take their goats there, and vice versa. So we have a lot of things which farmers do traditionally. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Simon, for answering the questions. I think we have been able to answer all the questions that the participants have raised. And I don't know if I hand it over back to Dr. Angelica, so that we can be able to discuss on the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you for this interesting session. And you see there are a lot of questions connected with this rangeland monitoring. Maybe I have a last question. What would be your, well, from your experience being in rangeland for so many years, where do you see the most research needs?
Oh, thank you. A lot of research is really required. In fact, we are not anywhere a quarter away. There is a lot of research required in those rangelands. And a particular one is, are we able to predict the changes in the nutritional composition of most rangeland plants? That is one. How is the species composition changes with the time? That's another one. How should the farmers adapt to climate change? How should farmers increase their resilience? That is, livestock farmers increase their resilience to climate change. There is also the issue of at what time should the farmers diversify their livestock and increase their numbers, and at what time specifically should they start destocking? Those areas are changing with climate change. And also there is a bit of the issue of the culture. There are some communities who don't believe in destocking, even when they can see that the effects of climate change are real and they are going either to lead to destruction of the animals. How can we persuade farmers to have that knowledge and acceptance of destocking when it is right, and increasing diversification when the conditions are right? So there is a lot to be done. And then the other bit is, much of the vegetation in rangelands depends on the type of soil. And much of the vegetation in rangelands dictates the type of breeds which can be kept. Can we have a map trying to show this vegetation is best suited for either this type of breeds of livestock or this type of vegetation is suited to this? So there is a lot pending to be done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is also a lot of food for discussion, how such research can be started. And you talked about, let's say, the biology, the management, and the culture, a lot of aspects raised from one topic. So maybe one comment of mine would be to remind that we added actually to this lecture series an additional date, the 9th of December, which is planned so far for open questions and for issues we would where all participants think that need to be discussed a little more deeper. So maybe some of your aspects which you just mentioned would be, yeah, how could such research be done with the users or with those concerned, and what examples are already out there. So for all of you, keep in mind that we have the 9th of December also for, let's say, more complex issues to discuss. With this, I think I can hand over to Professor Vasongo. I don't see that there has been an additional comment or question coming up. Harun Akala, he did, I think, very well facilitating all the questions. And yeah, so if possible, I don't know how the technique is. Oliver, I would give you the word.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Angelica, and everyone for participating. I'm on the move, but I'm able to join. I hope you can see me. Yeah, and I think we've had a very informative session by Muti, and I liked also the discussion that came across. And as I said, we are still going to have a session where we can delve deeper into some of these issues, and especially also be able to bring out some of those further research that needs to be done with respect to range management. So from my side, I just also say thank you again for attending, and we are looking forward to the next session in November. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Asante sana. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Simon, thank you very much again. You had to challenge with the technique, but you managed even with the blackout.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Asante sana. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, now your sound is even better. And during when you use the smartphone, the microphone was also better than sometimes with the computer. It's really strange, but yeah.
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 Thank you, Angelica. Thank you.
Yeah. Would you send me the slides again?
Yes. And even the others, I want to get rid of those Shako and Shat and replace with the others. So I'll do so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now you used only your own pictures. It was all your own photographies.
Yes, I took them yesterday in the field, so I was able to incorporate.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
This is always the best if you use own pictures.
Yeah, but I was not able to use the add values. I was not able to, I didn't have enough time to translate into the add value, but I will do that.
Okay, if not, I can do it for you.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.